Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Adrielle and I am currently narrating a story of my life dating back from January 2016. In my previous video, I wrapped up season 5 of An Unlikely Story. But before I get to season 6, it's very important for me to share this story time. This story time is about a character in An Unlikely Story called Ruby. So in this story time, I'm going to talk about how Ruby was not who I thought she was. Come to find out, she was somebody who was actually demonic. So in this video, I'm going to talk about all the things that happened in my friendship with her and all the signs that I saw that were kind of off and the ways that the Lord was letting me know that Ruby wasn't who I thought she was. So here it goes. So I want to start this video off by saying, if you haven't watched An Unlikely Story, it's a series on my YouTube channel, please do watch my series so that you can get a better understanding of Ruby, the character. Now, you can still understand the story time without watching An Unlikely Story, but if you want better understanding, more clarity of Ruby, the character, I would advise you to watch An Unlikely Story from the beginning. So I'm just going to talk about how I first met Ruby. I met Ruby in grad school. We were attending Georgia State and we had a class together. On the surface, Ruby seems like a cool chick. But one thing I really liked about her was that she was also Nigerian American. So I'm like, okay, this is someone who lives in Atlanta. She comes from a Nigerian household, born and raised in Atlanta. She's someone I can be close with. You know, she's someone I can be friends with. We both come from a Nigerian household. We can both understand one another. We have something in common. So we're both Nigerian Americans. We're both in grad school at Georgia State. We're both pursuing this graduate degree. This is someone I can be friends with. Okay, so that was my mindset. And plus also too, you got to remember this was 2018. I was still new to Atlanta, had been in Atlanta for 1 year at this point. So on the surface, Ruby seemed like someone I would want to be friends with. Now, let me get to her red flags. Now, I will say this. Back then in 2018, these things that I'm about to say, they did not look like red flags at the time. I thought the things that I'm about to say were, normal, it happens. It was later on that I realized that, oh my goodness, those things were actually red flags that I dismissed. So as I'm getting to know Ruby, I noticed these things and I'm going to talk about it. So the first red flag I noticed was my discussion with her about Brandon. So like I said, if you haven't watched An Unlikely Story, please do watch it. But I'm going to give a brief summary as to what I'm talking about. So back in 2018, the Lord revealed to me who my husband was. But at this time in my life, I was trying to sabotage it. And part of the ways I was trying to sabotage it was telling people about Brandon. Now, when I was telling people about Brandon, I wasn't telling him that this man is my husband. I was just telling him like, hey, this guy's on Instagram. He's super fine. Don't you think he's fine? Just bringing attention to him. But I wasn't telling these people that this man is my husband. So one of the people that I was talking about Brandon to was Ruby. So I'm like, hey, this guy's on Instagram. He's fine. Like, don't you think he's fine? I remember when I would have discussions about Brandon with Ruby, she was very dismissive. She was like, yeah, he's cool. He seems fine. Like she was kind of very dismissive. Now, another thing I want to mention too about this story is that I noticed that Ruby only liked dark-skinned guys. Like that was her preference. And I remember we would have discussions about guys, and I would say, as long as he's black, I don't care if he's dark skinned, I don't care if he's brown, caramel, light, as long as he's black, I don't care. But I noticed with her, she only liked dark skinned guys. Now, she's dark skinned as well. So when she would say, Brandon's, he's okay. Like when she would be dismissive about Brandon, I kind of was like, okay, maybe he's not her type because Brandon is more on the caramel side. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's not her preference. So that's the reason why she's not really, giddy or kind of like talkative about it with me. But something she did on one occasion that kind of was like, at the time, I was like, okay, it makes sense. But looking back, I was like, oh no, she was hating. I remember she said to me, Adriel, you need to think logically. This guy is on Instagram. He's a trainer. Like, don't try to see if you can get with him. That was what she was trying to get at. Like, you need to think logically. Like, he's on social media. Basically, she wasn't really entertaining my crushness, like me having a crush on Brandon. She wasn't entertaining it. She was telling me I need to think logically. And here's the thing about that. I agree with that. I do agree with the fact that if you don't know a guy, don't start, just don't start like making up ideas in your head about what could be with this guy, especially for the fact that you don't know him. Now, here's the thing about this discussion. I never told Ruby that God revealed to me that Brandon was my husband. Okay. So when she said that, I was like, you know what? That seems logical. Like, don't try to have a crush on a guy on social media. And plus, I remember saying that he seems like a nice guy. And she would say, well, of course, he's trying to sell fitness programs. Like, of course, he's going to be nice on the internet. Like, she was very, like, brash about it. Now, here's the thing. There was a particular guy that she liked. We're going to call him Kevin. Anytime she would talk about Kevin, I would always entertain the conversation. And I would always, like, be giddy with her. And I noticed that now looking back is that, man, she never had, like, the energy I was giving to her when it came to Kevin discussions, it wasn't the same with Brandon discussions. And also, too, Kevin was a guy that she also had to be realistic, too, about. I never told her, Ruby, you need to be realistic about Kevin. So looking back at it, I'm like, man, how come when I talked about Brandon, it was more like you need to be realistic. But when she talked about Kevin, I actually was entertaining the conversation. Like, this is my friend. Like, she has a crush on someone. We're going to be giddy together. Like, I want something to come out of it, even though I knew the situation was unrealistic. So that was one of the red flags that happened back in 2018 that I realized later on. Now, the second red flag, this is actually long-winded, but back in 2018, there was a very popular artist. He was going on tour with a very popular rap group. So before I met Ruby, I had already told myself that I was going to attend this concert. I got tickets, right? So fast forward to me meeting Ruby. Like I said, y'all, I'm still new in Atlanta. I'm trying to make friends. I remember having this discussion about the concert with her. I'm like, hey, such and such is coming to Atlanta. Would you want to go to the concert? And she says, oh, my friend told me about that. Now, for the sake of the story, we're going to call this friend Tiana. So she said, yeah, my friend told me about it. I don't know if I want to go. I'm still thinking about it. Okay, cool. Now, mind you, at this point, I had already bought my tickets. So whether she was going or not, I was still going to go. I just wanted to invite her as a way for us to hang out and just for me to be friendly and hang out with her and just gain friends in Atlanta. So probably 2 weeks later in class, I asked her again about the concert. And then she says, yeah, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. Then probably like a week later or so in class, I asked her about the concert and she was like, yeah, I'm not going. So once she said that, I told myself, okay, let me leave it alone because I don't want to keep asking her if she wants to go to this concert, if she doesn't want to go. It's been 3 times. And regardless of if she was going to go or not, I already bought my tickets. I was going to go. Fast forward to the day of the concert. Now, this was during Thanksgiving break. This was in November 2018. Hours before the concert, I'm on the phone with my mom and I tell her like, hey, I'm going to a concert tonight. Now, days before the concert, I already told my dad I was going to the concert. But this particular day, the day of the concert, I decided to tell my mom. And then my mom was like, who are you going with? And I said, oh, I'm just going by myself. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't want you going to a concert by yourself. And two, it was a rap concert. So she was like, no, I do not want you to go to the concert by yourself. She was like, if you were going with someone, fine. But you, as a woman going by yourself, it's not safe. Now, mind you, at this time, I was 25 years old. But here's the thing. My mom was right. Going to a rap concert by myself, downtown Atlanta, it's not ideal. So when my mom said that, I decided to put my tickets on sale from the website that I got it from, actually from the app that I got it from. So I posted my tickets on the app for sale. My roommate at the time, Melissa, I told her, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to the concert. And she was like, Adriel, are you serious? You're not going to the concert? I was like, no, my mom told me not to go, so I'm not going. So Melissa, my roommate, is looking at me like, you've been wanting to go to this concert for the longest and you're really not going because your mom said so? I'm like, yeah. She was like, you know how moms are, like they're so overly protective. I'm like, I know, but I'm not going. So I put my tickets up for sale. Hours was going by. No one bought my ticket. Melissa, my roommate, was going out with her friends to Top Golf. She says, hey, me and my friends are going to Top Golf. Do you want to come with us? And I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the apartment. I'm not going. So she said, okay. So she leaves, probably like around 5 p.m. She leaves. I'm in the apartment. Something just told me, in my mind and spirit, something just told me, reach out to Ruby and let her know you're not going to the concert. Now, mind you, when I invited Ruby to the concert back in, I think it was in September and October, she said she wasn't going to go. But for some odd reason, the thought of reach out to Ruby and tell her that you're not going to the concert, it just came into my head. So I picked up my phone. I text Ruby. I said, hey, Ruby, oh, by the way, I'm not going to the concert. Now, mind you, there shouldn't be any reason why I'm telling Ruby this because she's not going. Y'all, Ruby responds to me and says, oh, no, Adria, I forgot to tell you. I'm going to the concert. And then I respond like, what? So then I call her. So I said, hey, Ruby, you're going to the concert? She's like, oh, my goodness, Adria, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you. I'm going to the concert. Me and my friends, we're going. Actually, I'm on my way to my friend's place. Now, we're going to call this friend Tiana. And it's important that I give this girl a name. So she said, we're going to go to my friend's place. We're all going to meet there. So I guess it was like a group of like 5 girls or whatever. They were all going to meet at Tiana's place and then drive downtown to the concert. So she was like, oh my goodness, Adrian, I'm so sorry that I didn't tell you. And I said, okay, let's do this. When you and your friends are on your way to downtown, let me know so that I can get in a lift, meet you guys at the front of the arena, and then we can go in together. And then when it's time for us to leave, we can leave out together, and then I'll get into my lift and y'all get into your car. She was like, great. I'll let you know when we leave her place. So at this time, I go back to the app. No one bought my ticket. So I take my ticket back and I start dressing up to go to the concert. So I'm waiting in the apartment. Eventually, Ruby texts me and says, hey, we've left my friend's place. So her friend lived in Sandy Springs at the time. So Sandy Springs to downtown on a Sunday, I'm like, okay, it's going to be about 30 minutes. So I'm sitting there waiting in the apartment, probably like 10 minutes or so. Then I remember texting her like, hey, where are you guys at right now? And she says, oh, we're at the arena. And I was like, oh, snap. So I get up. I request my lift. The lift was like 5 minutes away. I get into the lift. The lift takes me to the arena. The concert had already started, which was fine. Okay. So I get to the arena. And by the time I get into the arena, the group that was performing, they performed their last song right before intermission. So when I got into the arena, they were wrapping up that song and then they went into intermission. So with the concert, y'all, I had general admission tickets. So I was in the pit. I was right by the stage. And Ruby and her friends, I think they were on the second or third row. So I remember being there, just waiting during the intermission. And I was by myself, y'all. At this time, I'm texting Ruby, letting her know that I'm in the concert. Actually, I'm in the arena. And I remember asking her that, hey, when the concert wraps, let us all meet together at the front of the arena, and then we will just go from there. She says, great idea. Okay. So I'm there, y'all, standing there, and there's a guy in front of me that was drunk. His girlfriend was trying to get him together. There were people out there smoking weed. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why did I come to this concert by myself? Thankfully enough, probably like 40 minutes into the intermission, another girl came to the pit where I was, and she was by herself. So we just started talking. Funny enough, me and her were actually attending the same church at the same time. She was going to City Church. So that was good. So after that, I think the intermission was like an hour and 20 minutes or so. After the intermission, the main headliner of the tour, the person who had the tour, he comes out and he's performing, right? So he performs, we're all having a good time. Now, I do want to say this. This particular show was this artist's last show of the tour. So after this artist performs his last song, we see the confetti falling on the floor. His crew come out and congratulate him on a successful tour. Then they tell him that, some of your peers want to congratulate you. So some of his peers were on the Jumbotron congratulating him on a successful tour. Okay? So that was how the concert ended. We were all walking out of the arena. I text Ruby. I said, hey, Ruby, where are you guys at right now? Ruby responds to me and says, oh, we already left. I was surprised because me and Ruby had already talked about meeting in front of the arena so that we can all leave together. So when she said that, I'm like, man, I need to figure out this lift situation right away. The concert ended probably like 11:45. I didn't get into my apartment at the time until almost 2 a.m. Yeah, it was chaotic with the whole lift situation. So that was what happened. Fast forward to December. We're out of Thanksgiving break. The semester's ending. I remember seeing Ruby in class. So we're talking about the concert. And I say to her, like, hey, I felt like we kept on missing one another. Now, this was me being so gullible, y'all, because like I said, I didn't see what Ruby was doing as a red flag back then. Now I do. But back then, I thought, man, we just kept on missing one another. We missed one another when it was time to get into the arena and leave the arena. So I was saying to her, like, hey, did you see when such and such was on the Jumbotron? Did you see when the confetti was falling on the floor? She was like, oh, no, we already left by that time. Yeah, my friend, she had to go to work. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, because it just felt like we kept on missing one another because I really thought I was going to run into Ruby in the arena. I want y'all to remember this, y'all. Now, like I said, back then, it wasn't a red flag. I truly thought that we were missing one another that day at the concert. But looking back, y'all, it truly was a red flag. So another red flag of Ruby at the time that I didn't know was a red flag was that I was moving out of my roommate's studio apartment to live in my own apartment. And I remember mentioning that to Ruby. She said she wanted to come over when I, move in. I'm like, cool. So the time I moved in was December 14th. So she said she wants to come on the 17th. Now, I let her know that I didn't have any furniture. But she was kind of like adamant of coming. She was like, I want to see your new place. I just want to come over. And also the next day, which was the 18th, I was flying back home to Jersey. So she was like, she really wants to come over. Now, I thought it would have been more ideal for her to come over when I had furniture, but she was kind of like adamant about coming to see my new place. So I said, okay, if you're fine with me not having furniture yet, that's fine. So the day of December 17, she texts me, she's going to come over at such and such time. So got to a point where she texts me like, hey, she's on her way. And then she texts me that she was 27 minutes away. Probably like 40 minutes passed. And I remember texting her like, hey, is everything okay? She's like, hey, I'm like 5 minutes away, something like that. So she comes to my apartment. I'm like, hey, this is the apartment. And I asked her, I said, hey, was the drive far? Because she lived in a particular area in Georgia. But here's the thing. At this time, y'all, I was in Atlanta for a year? So I didn't know how far places were. So I asked her, like, hey, was the drive far? She was like, oh, no. I think, what did she say? I think she said 39 minutes, or she said it wasn't far. But she made it very clear to me, y'all, that the drive wasn't far. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So we go out to eat to a restaurant that's close by. We go out to eat. So we're on the table, we're talking, and she mentions a girl's name. So for the sake of the story, we're going to call this girl Mercedes. Mercedes is in the program with us, but me and Mercedes, we had a class together. The class me and Mercedes had together wasn't the same class that me and Ruby had together, but Ruby and Mercedes had other classes together. So they were close, they were tight. I remember when I first met Mercedes, or when I first saw Mercedes in class, the beginning of the semester, I remember saying to myself, this is someone who I can see myself being friends with. Another Black girl in the program, right? So we're at this restaurant. She's talking to me about Mercedes. She says, oh, Mercedes actually lives around this area. I'm like, oh, okay. So she now brings up Kevin. So apparently Ruby had conversations with Mercedes about Kevin. I guess, a little girl talk or whatever. And I guess Mercedes had said that Kevin was attractive or cute or whatever, right? I remember her bringing it up, and she was like, well, Mercedes has a boyfriend, so she should even be like commenting or whatever, something like that. But I remember her just talking about Mercedes and mentioning how Mercedes has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend is actually Nigerian. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool that she has a Nigerian boyfriend. There's a lot of Nigerians here in Atlanta. So she would just bring up Mercedes, and she would bring up Kevin. I want y'all to remember this because it comes back later on in the story. Now, I want to say this. All the stuff I'm saying right now, I'm setting up the tone for the actual story time. So in the next video, I'm going to go into details of the actual story time, okay? This is just a preface. So the last red flag of Ruby at the time of 2018 was that we went to a museum. Now, this was my idea because I was like, hey, let me invite her to places. I'm trying to make friends, y'all, at this point. So I invited her to the museum. She drives to campus, and then we drive to the museum. We're there. And we get to the register to purchase our tickets. And the lady says it's $14.50 per ticket. Ruby turns to me and says, oh, Adrielle, I don't have cash on me. Could you please use your card and I can send you the money? So I say to her, like, you know what? Never mind. I'll pay for our tickets. Then she was like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'll pay for our tickets. So altogether, it was $29. So I say to her, like, hey, I want to use the restroom before we start, looking at stuff in the museum. She's like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Me too. So we go to the restroom, use the restroom, washing our hands. And she says to me, like, Adrielle, thank you so much for paying for the ticket. I'm like, hey, it's nothing, because at the end of the day, y'all, this was my idea for us to go out. I was the one who pulled her out of her home to come hang out with me. So the least I can do is that. And then she starts complimenting my coat. I'm like, oh, thank you. So we go on this, we tour the museum, right? We get to the West African exhibition, right? We get there. So I remember just telling her stuff about like Nigerian culture, because even though Ruby was Nigerian American, she had been to Nigeria at that time, I think twice or so. So there were still a lot of more things about the Nigerian culture that she didn't know. I went to middle school and high school in Nigeria, so I kind of knew more than her. So I would say, oh, this is this and this is that or whatever. So I remember getting to the end of the exhibition of, just me looking at the pieces. There was a security guard right there. And I remember Ruby was still looking at some other pieces. This security guard comes to me and says, yeah, could you please check on your phone? Like if you can just Google gyms that are open after 6 p.m. or so. I'm trying to go to the gym after work. I just don't know which gyms are open. So y'all, I'm standing in front of this guy looking at him like, is he serious? Like, that's what he's coming up to me to say. So y'all, I don't pull up my phone, because I feel like if you can come up to me and tell me that, you can pull out your own phone and Google gyms that are open after 6 p.m. So I'm just standing there looking at him. Ruby then stands next to me, and she's actually having a conversation with him, trying to help him out. Like, hey, you should try such and such gym. They're open till 11 p.m. Like, she's really trying to help him out. And I'm just standing there like, I am not giving this guy any attention with that. Like, I'm not. So she was just trying to help him out to figure out, the gyms, giving him suggestions about the gyms that are open at whatever time. So he then leaves us alone, and then we leave. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that was so weird. And then I turn around, I see him smiling. We ended up leaving the museum. We go out to eat. And when we go out to eat, we're just talking about different things. I do not know where looks came into the conversation. I can't remember. But I remember her saying something about being approached by guys. That was what the discussion. I don't know how it got there, but it got there. And then she says to me, she said, yeah, but, you're used to it, though. Now, I was confused when she said that I was used to being approached by guys, because I don't get approached by guys. I don't. So in my head, I'm like, where did she get this idea that guys are just out here approaching me? Like guys are just hitting on me, because that's not the truth. So I remember saying to her, like, no, I don't actually get approached. No. So in my head, I'm like, why would she say that? Well, like, first of all, she's thinking that. Why? And I thought it was funny that it happened right after the situation with the security guard. So I'm thinking, did she feel some type of way about the security guard approaching me? Because, girl, I don't want that type of attention. Like, I actually thought what he did was annoying. But I felt like there was this underlying, like, I don't want to say hatred, but a little bit of animosity. Like, what she said came from a place of animosity. But, y'all, at this time, I'm dismissing all the red flags that I'm seeing about Ruby. I'm just going with the flow because I'm trying to be a friend to this girl. I'm trying to build a friendship with her. Now, the last red flag I want to talk about, this was something that was distinct from the beginning. It stood out from the jump. All the other red flags, I realized that they were red flags later on. But this red flag I'm about to say, this was something I observed from the beginning. I noticed anytime I would have a conversation with Ruby, our conversations would always feel like an interrogation. It would always feel like she's interrogating me. I would always feel like I was the center of the conversation. Like she wanted to know so much about me. And I wasn't comfortable with that, and I wasn't used to that because I'm used to having conversations with people where, I'm saying stuff about myself, the other person saying stuff about themselves. Like it's free flowing. My conversations with Ruby never felt free flowing. It always seemed like she wanted me to be the center of the conversation, and the conversation was just going to be based off her knowing everything I had going on. I wasn't used to that, especially for the fact that I'm a private person. Now, here's the thing. Ruby also told me she's a private person, but it's like, you always trying to get my business. And I told you I'm a private person too. I'm like, man, how come my discussions with her always feel like an interrogation? Even got to a point, I actually brought it up to her, I think early 2019, I brought it up to her and I said, you ask a lot of questions. Like, you're very inquisitive. I said that to her. She was like, yeah, I've always been that way. My parents used to say that I should have been a lawyer. And I was like, okay, but no, y'all, it was so bad. Now, I've said all that I've said in this video in order for me to lay the groundwork for the story time. And the story time actually starts in the next video, okay? That's when the story really starts. And I'm going to talk about how my former friend was in the occult, okay? So if you're liking this story time, please like this video, share my video. Please also tune into an unlikely story too as well. And until next time, y'all, bye.